Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures, and we've got something pretty obscure today. This is a 1/72nd scale front mission model kit of the Zenith. I cannot remember which game. I'm going to assume, since it's number 1, it's probably from Front Mission 1. But what's interesting is these were only available from Square Enix. They are the ones who actually made it, and you'll notice that everything is in both English and Japanese, as well as other language cautionary warnings there for you to peruse at your own leisure. So this was part of a set, and these were originally only released in a boxed collection of all of them. So the only way you're really going to be able to get a hold of one of these is if you go through third-party sellers, or you're fortunate enough to have family members that just have too many model kits and pawn them off on you. So thank you, family members who pawn them off on me. I will gladly accept any and all models thrown my way, and most of you guys know that anyways, and I just couldn't resist. I was actually really curious about this one, because I wanted to pick up some of the Xenogear models that Square Enix has released, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I wasn't sure about the quality, and I didn't want to plunk down the money for an entire box if I wasn't going to be happy. Here you can see the sprue breakdowns. We've got, what, about 8 of them. You can see the weapon loadouts, good old knuckles on your Wanzers, and that is a very Wanzerish sculpt. I don't know what to expect. Let me slice this sucker open and let's see what's inside. I honestly don't know. A bag! Ooh, okay. Do you wish to see what's in the bag? I do, and I don't know if I have the upper body strength at the moment to actually tear it open. That is pathetic, my friend. Okay. Whew. Alright, so you can see we do have some color separation. The weapons are a light gray. Joint-looking parts are in a dark blackish gray color. And then our actual Wanzer parts are in an assortment of tans. Getting a little bit closer look at the detail. Nice, crisp, sharp. Are we going to see Chinese modern 1/72nd scale detail color separation on individual pieces? No. Are there die-cast parts anywhere? No. Are the hands mostly all put together? Yes. And these look like repeats with the legs. So, I mean, it doesn't look actually super complex, and I'm going to consider that a positive. Sometimes building too complex of kits takes its toll. Alright, so we do have... Interesting. They have it broken down as to where we should glue and where we shouldn't. Steps, obviously multiple parts, and the opposite sides. In my experience, it's usually pretty obvious what needs some glue and what doesn't. You can see here, so we have the dashed and solid lines. That makes sense where they glue it. I'll glue it. I mean, it doesn't look too complex. I'm really curious to see how this turns out, and it does bode well for me to end up getting some of the Xenogear stuff, but I have a feeling that that's going to need some paint. This, probably not, but Wanzers tended to be pretty solid blocks of color unless you started camouflaging them in the games, and I don't even think you could do that in the early ones. Someone want to correct me, go for it. It's been a long time since I played a proper front mission game, but at least in the meantime, I can put something together to vividly relive those fond days of yesteryear where I was trying to decipher everything in Japanese and doing a somewhat decent job at it, mind you. That was many moons ago, but anyways, let's get this sucker built. Sit tight. Alright, we got our first Wanzer all put together here. While its colors may not be the most exciting at the moment, that actually seems pretty authentic for those early front mission games. I can't speak to the later ones. In fact, I can't even remember the last time I played a front mission game. Was there one on the PS2? I don't even remember. I know I played 2 for sure on import, and I remember like discussing the story with my brother and trying to figure it all out at the time. And I remember playing alternative, and the load times in both of those were atrocious. And 3, I think, got translated on the PS1, maybe? I remember playing that. And then I kind of have forgotten. Still, my favorite is the original in Gun Hazard. Gun Hazard was absolutely awesome, especially if you love old games like Assault Suit, Lanos, Cybernator, Vulcan, any of those type of side-scrolling games. That was a really cool one. In terms of posability, you know, pretty flexible. I have no real complaints there. Some of the parts were super tiny, like the little lights, and I'm assuming these are some kind of like chaff rockets or something, smoke dispensers, who knows. You'll notice there's all sorts of hard points, and then the hard points actually have various attachments that you can put on there. What those attachments are, I'm not 100% sure, but that's part of the point, is that if you have multiple Wanzers rather than just the one like I have, then you can go ahead and start swapping parts out, much like the actual games. So you do have a couple of weapon options available included in the kit. You've got the knuckles for both hands. Unfortunately, the hand itself is going to be colored the same as the knuckle. I did run into a couple of spots where the pieces just did not want to sit flush with each other. And there wasn't any kind of obstruction, so you can see like there's a thin crack between the two pieces of the backpacks. There's like these weird discrepancies where some of the extra armor plating, which actually covers up some of the gaps, does not want to go on all the way, like on his left thigh there. But I mean, it doesn't really detract overall, I think, from the model. It is just kind of neat to have them. There are optional heads, which I thought was a nice touch. And technically, these are supposed to be 1/72nd scale, so if you do have access to the other kits in the line, I'm sure you can come up with all kinds of fun combinations, much like the games themselves. But since they're 1/72nd, well, I mean, it's not like it's that much smaller than an actual Gundam. Kind of reminds me of like the armored puppet kits in terms of size. If you haven't seen these, we have a couple videos on them, and they're really fun ones. In fact, I was just finishing up building another one for a video. I'm going to ice this right here. Grabbing a 30-minute sister. So you can see, I mean, it's not overtly large, but the price tag doesn't really necessarily reflect that. And I think for most of us, at least on the western side of the hemisphere, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, to find these, because they were sold only in boxes, especially if you went through the Square Enix store. That was the only way to get them. Supposedly, these are supposed to be available at retail individually. I have yet to see that happen. Well, that's Square these days for you, but I don't know. I mean, it's just a nice little kit. It does make me feel a little bit more confident about the Xenosaga stuff. Xenogears, not Xenosaga. Why don't we say Xenoblade while we're at it? But the only issue is, I think it's going to be a similar situation where the kits themselves are going to be basically cast in one color, maybe two, for the plastics, and then you're on your own. You're going to have to paint everything else up yourself, which is like one of those times where having an airbrush is really going to be handy. I have access to one, I just care not to do it because it's a lot more time consuming. I have brushes and everything I need handy right here. I mean, I guess if you do have access and you like using it regularly, the temptation absolutely is there if you wanted to go camouflage these up or give it some kind of bizarre paint scheme, much like we always did in the older games. That's absolutely doable here. So overall, cool little kit. Obnoxious fitting the parts together, and I did not feel like mangling my fingers trying to, bash them to work, but overall, fun. Gotta say, nice little way to spend the afternoon. I found it funny just how large the directions the pieces look, and they're like stinking tiny. This is just the joint in the arm. It was absolutely minuscule. So I did find that amusing. But yeah, fun stuff to build. Very nostalgic. And if you're familiar with the games, then I'm sure it's going to be even more of a big interest item in that regard. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye!